Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionRadio.com, the voice of the media here in the sports entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm your host, Ian McKelly. We have another amazing episode planned out for you and everyone watching around the world. And for the Vegas Golden Knights, we know that they have officially one number. We all know that number 58 will never be worn by the Vegas Golden Knights. Number 58, because of the passing on 1 October, because it happened on October 1st, 2017. 58 people who passed away, unfortunately. Well, their jersey was retired in remembrance of that event. Now, the Seattle Kraken have a number of the Vegas Golden Knights have one number retired. There's a few teams that have one number retired. But I want to ask this question. I really want to do a deep dive here on Vegas Hockey Hub and really examine and really ask the right question here. And the question is, who will be the first player to get their jersey retired as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights? Who is going to be the first player in Golden Knights history to have his number raised up into the rafters? Who's going to be the first player to have their jersey retirement ceremony at T-Mobile Arena in a decade and a half, when their career is eventually over and we'll be seeing them and being remembered for a fantastic career in the NHL? Because in my respective opinion, I have five for you. I have five players, and I'm going to go from five and work down to one. And I'm going to give you five possible players who could have their jersey retired here in Las Vegas. And we're going to start out with number five. And I'm only putting him on here because if he continues at the pace that he is at, if he continues to do what he is doing right now, make no mistake about it, he most definitely could be a retire jersey number in the Vegas Golden Knights system. And I'm going to say that would be number five, and that's Chandler Stephenson. Now, not only did I make a video here on this show about how Chandler Stephenson is the best trade in Vegas Golden Knights history, how Chandler Stephenson is the best acquisition in Vegas Golden Knights history. But I've also made an argument here on the show that Chandler Stephenson has become a leader in Las Vegas. Chandler Stephenson has become a solidified top six forward on the Vegas Golden Knights. Chandler Stephenson, once he becomes a free agent in 2024, after that season ends, he should get a bag. He should get a good amount of money once he becomes a free agent. But let's not talk about free agency. Let's not talk about offseason. Let's talk about what we know about Chandler Stephenson. And the first part about Chandler Stephenson has been his production ever since he got to the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, Chandler Stephenson was traded in the middle of the 2019-2020 season. So I'm not going to count that one. It was only part of the season. But let's count his 3 full-time seasons with the Vegas Golden Knights. In those 3 full seasons that Chandler Stephenson has been a member of our Vegas Golden Knights, this is the same Chandler Stephenson who, throughout his 220 games as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights, he has had 54 goals, 110 assists, 164 points as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, if you want to talk about 2020, 2021, when he had 14 goals on the year, that's fine. If you want to talk about his breakout campaign he had in 2021, 2022, when he had 21 goals and 64 points in a breakout campaign, go right ahead. But what I want to point out is that Chandler Stephenson in that 3-year span, 142 points in 179 games, near 100 assists in 3 seasons. That is a level of productivity that you don't see much out of players, especially a player that really floundered on the bottom 6 in Washington. I mean, Chandler Stevenson is a feel-good story and is a story about a player eventually becoming a top 6 forward. I mean, keep in mind, he spent 5 seasons in Washington, and he had 14 goals in 168 games. This was a Chandler Stevenson who never cracked more than 20 points in a year with the Washington Capitals. He comes to Vegas and has had 35 or more points every single season that he has been a full-time member of your Vegas Golden Knights. Let's also break down the analytical facts, and that is that Chandler Stevenson in 3 whole seasons has a plus 34 and has had 71 penalty minutes, which, by the way, on average would be around 29. So I will say when it comes to Chandler Stevenson, he doesn't cause that many penalty minutes. He has been solid in terms of plus minus. He has been able to light up the lamppost with 46 goals in 3 full-time years, and he has had over 140 points as a member of the Golden Knights. There's also the same Chandler Stevenson that has had 12 game-winning goals. He has had a shooting percentage around 16% as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights, which, by the way, a shooting percentage is very valuable in the NHL. It tells you, how much of a percentage of their shots are going in as goals. And Chandler Stevenson being at 16%, that's a good deal for Vegas. I also want to point out that this is the same Chandler Stevenson who can play as a wing. He can play as a center. I mean, Chandler Stevenson is a natural center, but has been transformed and has transitioned into a winger on that top line. And the reason why I could say that Chandler Stevenson would be 5th when it comes to who will be the first player to get their jersey retired in Vegas is because if he keeps up the production that he has had the past 3 seasons in Vegas, if he continues being a first-line winger on the same line with Mark Stone, on the same line as Jack Eichel, he can be a player that 5, 6, 7 years from now could be setting records in terms of career leaders with the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, Chandler Stevenson, in terms of assists per game, is 2nd in Vegas Golden Knights career. Like, out of all Vegas Golden Knights, he has the 2nd most assists per game. The first one I'm going to talk about when we get later into the show. So, to really start this out, at number 5, I have number 20, Chandler Stevenson, because not only was he the best trade in Vegas Golden Knights history, but Chandler Stevenson has been an example of when you take a guy that was kind of, mediocre on the bottom 6, a guy who is floundering on the bottom line, and you trade him, you bring him to a new team, that team believes in him, and he becomes a top 6 forward, and in the case of Chandler Stevenson, becomes a top line forward on the Vegas Golden Knights. So he's number 5. Number 20, Chandler Stevenson. So as we are talking about who will be the first player to get their jersey retired in Las Vegas, here on Vegas Hockey Hub, on PRConnectionRadio.com, the voice of new media. Here in the sports entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, I'm your host, Ian Rickelli. Continuing the conversation, let's go to number 4, and let's talk about defenseman number 27, Shea Theodore. So Shea Theodore has played 6 full seasons with the Vegas Golden Knights. Yes, I am aware that he spent a little bit of time in the AHL in the first year the Vegas Golden Knights were here. But mostly, he has played almost every single game as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, he has played no less than 60 games, or more likely 75% of the season as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, Shea Theodore in 6 seasons went from a young, up-and-coming prospect, 22 years old, a guy who was tossed in at the 2017 NHL expansion draft in order for them to not take Josh Manson or to not take Sami Vatanen. And instead, he has become not just a marquee, but has become one of the best defensemen in Vegas Golden Knights history. There's also the same Shea Theodore for someone who, by the way, knows analytics. He has the most wins above replacement out of any player on the Vegas Golden Knights. Shea Theodore has a wins above replacement at 43.8. Now, that is insane. The fact that out of all the Golden Knights, out of everyone who has suited up as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights, Shea Theodore has the highest wins above replacement out of anybody on the team. And most of that comes from defensive win above replacement, I might add. In fact, he has the most wins above replacement on the defensive metric. And Shea Theodore, in 6 full seasons as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights, 371 games played, 57 goals, 228 points, and a plus 61 as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, I will point out that, yes, Shea Theodore has not won anything yet. All right, Shea Theodore has not won a Norris Trophy. Shea Theodore has not been an All-Star yet. I'm aware that Shea Theodore has not gotten any accolades yet on the NHL level. But what I want to point out to everyone watching right now is sometimes in order to have their jersey retired by a team, it has to do a lot more with longevity than it has to do with accolades. When it comes to your jersey being retired by your said organization, a huge percentage of the time, it's because you were a leader in the locker room. It's because you were a face of the franchise. It's because you were someone who really led that organization for a decade and a half. And considering that Shea Theodore has been here for 6 years and has signed up for a contract that will get him until year 8 as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights, I say just based off of that longevity alone and the fact that Shea Theodore, by the time everything is done, will have over 500 games played once his contract is up as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. I think it would be a valid argument that if Shea Theodore gets to a decade, or if he re-signs with the Vegas Golden Knights once his contract is up, Shea Theodore could very well be a member of the Vegas Golden Knights retired jerseys list, that he could be a player that number 27 will be hanging up in the rafters at T-Mobile Arena at some point in his career. The only reason why I could say that maybe possibly he wouldn't be there is if either 1, he gets traded, or 2, he signs somewhere and he ends up winning a championship someplace else. But even then, we've seen in the past in the NHL that even if you sign someplace else in free agency, if enough time eventually passes, the fan base, the organization will bring you back in full open arms. So yeah, Shea Theodore would be number 4. You know, if it wasn't for the 3 people ahead of Shea right now, I would say that Shea Theodore would be a lock to have a jersey retired. The first real young guy to make his presence known in Vegas, the first prospect, the first young up-and-coming star that the Vegas Golden Knights have ever had. So I say at number 4 would be number 27, defenseman Shea Theodore. I say that if he gets to the decade mark, his jersey will be planted up in the rafters at T-Mobile Arena. Now, the last 2 that I've talked about when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights are players who are right now on the NHL roster. The last 2 players, Chandler Stevenson, number 20 at number 5, and Shea Theodore's number 27 at number 4. Those are players that could have a legacy continue with the Vegas Golden Knights. But at the third spot, I have your original face of the franchise. At this spot here, I have your original Vegas Golden Knight, original misfit, and someone who only played 4 seasons with the Vegas Golden Knights. But man, oh man, he had a 4 seasons that really left a mark here in Las Vegas. And of course, I'm talking about number 29 goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury. I'm talking about Flower. If I was going to do any list or any ranking about who would be the first player to get their jersey retired here in Las Vegas, it would be a shame. It would be an abomination if I didn't mention Flower. I acknowledge and I admire the fact that this fan base here in Las Vegas still loves Marc-Andre Fleury. It doesn't matter that he's with the Minnesota Wild now. He is still loved here in Vegas. Marc-Andre Fleury had a lasting impact here in Vegas. He was the goalie that first got them to the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. He was the first goalie that led them to a Stanley Cup playoff game. He was the first goalie to win a Vezina as a Vegas Golden Knight. He was the first goalie to win a Jennings as a Golden Knight. Marc-Andre Fleury set a lot of records here in Las Vegas, and I will give him all the credit in the world. All right, he was the original face of the franchise, and the guy I'm about to talk about next is the current face of the franchise. And you can make an argument that the torch was passed or whatever you want to talk about, but the statistics and the stats are this. If it wasn't for number 29, the Vegas Golden Knights wouldn't have had that amazing year 1 as an expansion team. If you didn't have number 29, you wouldn't have had a fan base that would have been as electrifying and as exciting as it is now because of Marc-Andre Fleury showing up and the fan base he had already that kind of joined the Golden Knights from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's also talk about the fact that you had a superstar immediately out of the gate with the expansion team in Vegas, thanks to Marc-Andre Fleury. Now, the only negative I have, and this is the only negative, is how short his tenure was with the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, there's going to be some of you who are going to say 4 seasons is not short. 4 seasons is not a short tenure in hockey. Well, when you realize that Shea Theodore is going to be 8 seasons in, when Chandler Stevenson eventually becomes a free agent, he will be 5 years in. When Mark Stone becomes a free agent, he will be 9 years in. And when Jonathan Marchessault becomes a free agent, he'll be 7 years in. There's all these players. Riley Smith will be 9 years in once his contract eventually comes up. William Karlsson will be about 9 years, 10 years in. The point I am making is that the Vegas Golden Knights, a good portion of your core, a good portion of your foundation has been here for half a decade or more, or when their contract is up, will be at the half-decade mark or more. Marc-Andre Fleury was only here for 4 seasons, 2017, 2018, 2018, 2019, 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021. And of course, we all know how it ended. All right, we don't have to go there. I made an entire video on this show about it. I've gone into full detail about Marc-Andre Fleury here on Vegas Hockey Hub. But what I will point out to you is that his tenure being 4 seasons could be the only reason why his jersey will not be inducted first. And that's what this show's about. Who will be the first player to get their jersey retired here in Vegas? And more importantly, if Marc-Andre Fleury was going to get his jersey retired, it would be in Pittsburgh. And let's not be cute. Let's not be nice about it. It's facts. Marc-Andre Fleury if his jersey got retired, it would be as a yellow and black, and that would be as a Pittsburgh Penguin, where he won not one, not two, but a trio of Stanley Cup championships out there in the Steel Town. So that's who I have at number 3. And what we're talking about here on Vegas Hockey Hub, on PRConnectionRadio.com, the voice of new media, here in the sports entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm your host, Ian Rickelli. Who will be the first player to get their jersey retired in Las Vegas? I mentioned at number 5 is number 20, Chandler Stevenson. At number 4 is number 27 by Shea Theodore. At number 3 is number 29 by Marc-Andre Fleury. And then at number 2, we have the current captain of your Vegas Golden Knights. A superstar who was the first to choose to come here. A superstar who really came from another organization and joined the Vegas Golden Knights before they were an expansion team. This was Mark Stone, a second-year team, getting a player like Mark Stone. I also want to point out that Mark Stone, in his 4 seasons, and his 4 full-time seasons as a Vegas Golden Knight, has been nothing but incredible in Vegas. Now, to give you the context for Mark Stone. Now, Mark Stone joined at the trade deadline in 2019. And no, I'm not going to count his 2019 NHL season, his 2019 playoffs. I'm not going to count it because he spent over 60 games that year with the Ottawa Senators. Okay, he spent more than 70% of that year on another team. It was a small scale in terms of sample size. But the 4 seasons that the Vegas Golden Knights have had Mark Stone, he has been nothing but phenomenal when he's been on the ice. In 200 games played, Mark Stone has had 68 goals, 192 points, and a plus 59 as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. This is also the same Mark Stone that has had 14 game-winning goals and 60 out of those 68 goals I mentioned earlier. Mark Stone was named the first ever captain of the Vegas Golden Knights. There's also the same Mark Stone who has received not 1, but 2 Selke Trophy votes as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. This is the same Mark Stone that when he put up 61 points in a shortened 2020-2021 season, he even received Hart Trophy votes. And for anybody who doesn't know what the Hart Trophy is, that is the most valuable player in the NHL. That 2020-2021 season, Mark Stone was in the top 10 in voting for the Hart Trophy that year. And he was in the top 3 for Selke. So you have a situation with Mark Stone where his first season and his full-time season in the Vegas Golden Knights, 65 games, 21 goals, 63 points, almost averaging a point per game. Year 2, 55 games, 21 goals, 61 points, averaging over a point per game. And in an injury-riddled 2021-2022 season, 37 games played, 9 goals, 30 points. So that was a little bit shy of a point per game. And Mark Stone in the 2022-2023 season so far, 43 games played, 17 goals, 38 points. Once again, a little under a point per game. So Mark Stone having 192 points in 200 games in 4 full-time seasons as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. That is an incredible mark. And by the time everything is said and done, do I believe Mark Stone will eventually have his jersey retired? Absolutely. Do I believe that the first captain in Vegas Golden Knights history will have his jersey retired in a decade from now? Yes, I do. The only reason why I would say that he won't be the first player to get their jersey retired is because there is one player that has so many franchise records that it would be unfair and unacceptable for your host Ian Ricchelli to not have him at number one. And that would be number 81, Jonathan Marchessault. Just to put this in really good context, in 6 full seasons with the Vegas Golden Knight, an original misfit, Jonathan Marchessault, his stats are like this. Keep in mind, like I said, a day one. In 400 games played, 137 goals, franchise leader. 186 assists, franchise leader. 323 points, franchise leader. 204 penalty minutes, second in franchise history. And by the way, he is also the franchise leader in games played, is Jonathan Marchessault. 25 game-winning goals, franchise leader. Shots, over 1,350 shots as a Vegas Golden Knight. Once again, franchise leader. In terms of offensive wins above replacement, the leader, Jonathan Marchessault. In terms of wins above replacement, who is in second on that list? Jonathan Marchessault. So Jonathan Marchessault is either first or second in almost every offensive statistical analysis that you have. Almost every category in terms of franchise leader, Jonathan Marchessault is either first or second on almost every list. So when you put all of that, it makes it a clear choice. Let's also examine the fact that Jonathan Marchessault, in terms of the community, has been a leader as well. Jonathan Marchessault is a guy that will meet every single fan he gets an opportunity to. This is a guy in Jonathan Marchessault that reaches out to the community. He reaches out to Las Vegas. I also can't forget the fact that Jonathan Marchessault is also a player that has represented Las Vegas in a positive light all 6 years he has been a Vegas Golden Knight. There's really not any clips of him going on a tangent on the sideline. There is really no incident of him doing cheap shots. There really isn't any incidents of him doing instigating. Jonathan Marchessault is what you would describe as a player who plays hockey the right way. He is someone who knows how to play the game. So Jonathan Marchessault would be my number one pick. And if I had to say right here, right now, regardless of what happens in the 2024 offseason, if I had to put a bet down on who will be the first player to get their jersey retired in Las Vegas, it would be number 81, Jonathan Marchessault. But you know what? Go into the chat down below, go into the comment section, and let me know if you agree or disagree that Jonathan Marchessault will be the first player to get his jersey retired as a Vegas Golden Knight. And while you're at it, if you're on our YouTube channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and turn on notification bell so you not miss any upcoming content. And for anybody who's watching on prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media, go on to our YouTube channel, like, share, and subscribe. Go to our Facebook page, hit the like button, and follow the page. And follow all the content that's on there as well. Cozy Stone, you have the Professionals podcast. There's so much fantastic content on PR Connections Radio. Check out everyone, not just Vegas Hockey Hub. But until next time, continue watching hockey, support junior hockey, and go Knights, go.